Pakistani model strangled to death by brother in quote unquote honor killing. And I say quote unquote because we refer to it popularly as honor killing, but of course, no one here actually believes that there is anything honorable in this. Anyways, on July 11th, Muhammad Aslam reported to the Defense B police station that his stepsister had been murdered and raped. I'm not saying the full word because of YouTube. Aslam stated to the police that he discovered his sister's body on the floor during a visit to her house on July 9th. The victim is Nayab Nadeem, a 29-year-old Pakistani model who had recently returned from a trip to Dubai. The police were eager to resolve the murder case. Evidence collected from the crime scene indicates that Aslam was the last person to have seen Nadeem alive. Aslam then confessed to the murder. In his confession, he explained that he killed Nadeem because she was, quote, disgracing the family's honor because he suspected her of having relationships with different men. During his last visit, he and the victim had an argument which led him to strangle her to death. To mislead the police, he stripped her clothes and made it appear as a RAPE/murder case. As of yet, no report indicates Muhammad Aslam. No reports indicates him of being charged with murder.
Wait, what? No reports indicate that he's charged with murder? Why hasn't he been charged? Why hasn't he been charged with murder?
Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I'm just saying at the time that we published this, we could not confirm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there was
and I also want to note, our writer made a very good note that in some reports he's referred to as Muhammad Aslam, some Muhammad Ali, just for clarity.
Okay. We have a very good writer, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps noticing things. Yeah, guys, by the way, check out the link to all this news is in the description. Check out our news articles, and they all come sourced. Like you can see all these hyperlinks. Our writer does a very good job to make sure that it links to where the news we're getting the multiple sources that we use to get the news from. So yeah, so there was no actual, as far as we know, RAP. Again, we say RAP because YouTube might be sensitive to certain words, but there's no actual, he just made it look like that. He didn't actually do that to his own sister, right?
Yes, he was trying to throw off the case, throw the police off, do a little red herring, try to distract them from him possibly being a suspect, because he actually was the one that reported it to the police.
Right. Again, we have to go through this every time something like this happen. Is this people might say well, what does this got to do with Islam, right? And again, because we're reporting this on Atheist Republic, this was honor killing, and this is in Pakistan. So naturally, a lot of our audience is going to assume that this is because of Islamic teaching, right? Especially because you can see the word honor killing, but then some people will be no, this is not Islamic. This is something cultural, because there's nothing in Islam. And this is actually accurate. Okay. I'm going to say something that's going to make it seem like this has nothing to do with Islam. And then I'm going to rebut that. Okay. And I'm going to say why this is actually, you could blame Islam for this. Okay. I've done this many times, but we have to do it every time we cover the news. Okay. So it's true that there's nothing in the Quran or any Islamic hadith that justifies this. Zero. Okay. There's zero. Am I saying there's no the death penalty is not the punishment for adultery in Islam? No, I'm not saying that. It is there is a lot of Islamic hadith that specifically, and also Quran, that would justify.
I have a question.
Yeah. No.
Is premarital sex considered adultery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but according to the Quran, the punishment for that is, flogging, right? But according to Hadith, the punishment for that is stoning, right? And according to Hadith, there was a Quranic verse that allows you, that also the punishment for adultery is stoning. However, that Quranic verse was eaten by a goat, according to Aisha, right? So we still have Hadith that says that the stoning is a punishment for adultery, but we don't have a Quranic verse that says the punishment for adultery is stoning. The Quran just tells you that you're supposed to flog them. However, hadith is part of Islam. But even if there is that punishment for adultery in Islam, you can't just like, Islam doesn't allow you to just like willy-nilly go ahead and you know, for a brother without any court, without any hearing, without any due process. You apparently need like 5 eyewitnesses, right? Which it wasn't produced here. Again, I'm not trying to defend Islam. I'm just telling you what Islam teaches, okay? So this is not acceptable in the behavior of this brother is not acceptable based on Islamic practices. Like, this is not allowed what he did, right? However, can we still not blame Islam for this? Of course we can. Of course we could blame Islam for this, even though this is not according to Islamic scripture, right? Because the influence of Islam or religion on culture is not just one-to-one. Like, it's not just like, here's the scripture, here's the practice matches scripture, and therefore this is like, it's not that the influence of scripture is something that you could just take certain behavior and you could find a mirror image of that in scripture, and that would be the only influence of religion, right? The example I give people is that like, child abuse is not encouraged in Christianity. There's nowhere in the New Testament or the Old Testament that tells you that priests can abuse, that allows the abuse of children by priests, right? But there's ways that Christianity has created an environment where you could see, or Christianity and other religions, that creates environments where children are more likely to get abused by religious leaders than in other environments. And for example, it could be that the teaching in Christianity that makes all sins forgivable through Jesus Christ might encourage certain behavior that you think that you will be forgiven for because you have access to God for forgiveness. Or it might be that Christianity encourages certain trusts to certain people that don't, and certain credibility and certain authority to some people to take care of children because they are seen as a moral man or man of God. And in other environments, when you trust people with children, you look for signals and you look for credentials and for other ways to be able to trust people with children. But in a religious circle, because these are supposed to be moral men or man of God, you give trust to people that don't deserve that trust, and that will put children in a more vulnerable position. So it's not that Christianity, there's any scripture in Christianity that encourages child abuse, so that you can't see like anywhere in the Bible that allows that, but still Christianity in an indirect way creates environments where that's more possible. For example, similarly, like honor killing in Islam, what we describe as honor killing is not something that in Islamic text is encouraged or allowed. However, this, you know, the misogyny in Islam, the way that purity culture, modesty culture, shame associated with behavior like this, the way women are described in Islam, the way that seems like women are possession of men, the way that men have authority over women, the way it seems like men are allowed to, you know, Islam has many scriptures and many teachings that shows that men are allowed to do certain things to women that are brutal, that are not, you know, so creating that environment where make men feel that they have this authority over women, that this is their possession, and mix that with a culture that encourages modesty culture, purity culture, shame culture, it will make it more likely to, a culture that has honor killing in it is more likely to be created in an environment where religion like this is dominant, right? So even if the relationship is not one-to-one, honor killing is a side effect of Islam, but even if you can't find it in the scripture. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Well, thank you.
I also wanted to talk about something very important when we're covering this news stories, because this is just like one instance of hundreds of instances that happen in Pakistan in particular. And we only tend to hear about the ones that happen to women that are more upper, in a higher class, basically. So One fact is that Pakistan has the highest number of documented and estimated honor killings per capita of any country in the world. About 1/5 of the world's honor killings are committed in Pakistan, which is 1,000 out of 5,000 per year total. For comparison, I believe, and people can fact check me on this, that so if they're and 5,000 is probably a low, it's probably a very conservative estimation. But if 1,000 of the 5,000 comes from Pakistan, I believe another 1,000 out of the 5,000 comes from India. India is substantially larger. And again, there's all sorts of issues and limitations regarding reporting. But I think that alone gives some perspective into how severe the situation of violence against women is in the country. And it's so frustrating to me, like with the story we covered last week with the Pakistan Park incident, where a woman and her friends was assaulted by literally hundreds of men. Is that then there are leaders like Imran Khan who then point to these problems of quote unquote sexual immorality, as to use like their kind of terminology, in society, and blame it on basically being westernized, saying that this is the influence of Western society on our children because they have more access to phones, and that's why this is happening more. And that if children would just turn back to the ways of our Prophet Muhammad, then we wouldn't have these issues like this, which is incredibly frustrating for
why are
people
you
who
the
actually
leading
study
country?
these issues and have some insight into where these ideas around the possession of ownership come from. It's a step backwards.
If it's because of westernization, why is Pakistan the leading country and not the Western countries? And when it comes to honor kill, I have a question. Okay, too much thinking. I have a question though. What are the percentage of honor killings what percentage of honor killings happen in Islamic countries / communities?
I don't know. Let me look at this source really quickly.
Because like I think excluding, if you take India out, like I think it's either like I would assume that like over 90% of honor killings is either India or Islamic country / community. Do you know what I mean? So only India is like so I would say like maybe 20, like around 20% of honor killing is India. I'm just guessing, right? And then 70% of the rest, I'm just guessing, I have no idea. Let's see if this is true. 70% is either Islamic country or Islamic community. And then the remaining 10% would be elsewhere. That's what I'm guessing.
It's hard to find proper statistics on these things. So one major place where I find this data is the Honor-Based Violence Awareness Network. But their statistics and data don't actually elucidate how they're finding this data, how they're collecting it, how up to date this data is. So they just say that there's 5,000 per year, 1,000 in India, 1,000 in Pakistan, 12 in the UK, which is not very
12 what?
detailed.
12 what in the UK? 1,200?
Honor killings in the UK per year.
12. Oh, just 12. 1, 2, 12.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Wait, I shouldn't be laughing at this. No, but like, why is all of a sudden, why like they go to 12 in the UK? Like, you're like, oh, 1,000 in Pakistan, 1,000. Like, isn't there a huge gap? Like 12? Like, what about the rest of the, we're missing a big 3,000 here. It's weird that they all of a sudden jump to a country that has 12.
Yeah, that's something that's really frustrating for me as someone who's a nerd, is the lack of really detailed and quality research onto this subject that's comprehensive across the world and not just within specific nations. So I can't give you a more detailed answer about the prevalence being more or less in Islamic countries.
Okay, I will bet that it's like at least 70% Islamic, 20% India, and the rest, I don't know, scattered everywhere. You want to read some of these comments while I get Derek's news?
Yeah, blank name is saying, I dispute that. If Pakistan had the same quality of living standard as Sweden, then I would say this probably won't happen, which is not to say that it doesn't have an influence. Actually, blank name, I'm inclined to agree with you. Just the circumstances, particularly if women are better educated throughout society, you just see less of this stuff. And that's not me trying to victim blame women who are less educated. That's not what I mean. It's more of an indicator of the standard of life for women in that society and opportunities available to them. Am I making sense, or am I coming off as victim?
No, you make sense. No, just okay. But I think I completely disagree with blank name, not because what he's saying is not true, but because he misunderstands what we're saying. Okay, nobody said we're not saying Islam is the only factor. The claim is not that Islam is the only factor. The claim is that Islam is a factor. Obviously, anything social related is multifactorial. So obviously, the quality of life economics has an influence. This is we're talking about socioeconomic issues. Everything has an influence. Okay, it's about how much of an influence. And when you say Islam is a fact, you guys need to become better understanding of when we're talking about policy, socioeconomics. You have to actually learn how complicated and multifactorial these things are. When you hear somebody saying this is a factor, when this is being said, instead of hearing this is a factor, what you're actually hearing, because you're not paying attention, is somebody saying this is the only factor. That's not the claim. Okay, if Islam is a factor and economy is a factor and culture is a factor and policy is a factor and access to education is a factor, all of these is a factor, then if you improve one of these things and it solves the issue somewhat, if for example, let's say you have honor killing in a society, right? And you improve education and you improve economics, and you see that honor killing gets reduced. Okay, so if you see that and you actually prove that those things were a factor, that doesn't deny that those other things were also a factor. That doesn't deny Islam was a factor. Okay, that just shows that these other things were also factors. Obviously, do I even need to say this? Is this so hard to understand?
No,
for example. Let me make this very easy. Okay, let's say economics is a factor. That means if economic situations improve, honor killings will go down. Okay, and also let's say Islam is a factor. That means that if Islam becomes less of an influence, even if you keep education and economic factors the same, if the influence of Islam goes down, honor killing will go down. So if you keep if this is, I'm not saying these are true or not. I'm just saying if this is the claim, this is what you would expect to see. You keep the other things the same, you reduce one of them, it will improve. You reduce Islam, the situation will improve. Increase education, increase economics, things will improve. These are really simple concepts, guys. Multifactorial. Remember, multifactorial. But go on.
Blank name is saying, I misunderstood. Sorry. Guys, if you misunderstand and then Armin is going in on you, it's mainly because he's using that as an opportunity to make a point in general, not going after you personally. But I also want to add that while I said that if I think that if the material conditions for both men and women improved in Pakistan, we would probably see less of this. I would reckon that we would still see more of it than we would in equivalent countries that have a similar quality of life and GDP. Because when you see cultures based around honor specifically that involves an entitlement or possession of women within one's own family, you see these instances, as is the case in India, which isn't necessarily Islamic. We see this a lot in Hindu communities there. Zakuro is saying, but let's not lose heart. Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, is becoming increasingly popular in Pakistani universities. Students and lecturers are being influenced. Yes, there is a great desire for New thought and free thinking in Pakistan, that's for sure. I know because I
So
talked to so many of them.
is this
People who live
actually
there.
true? Because I want to know
I don't know.
which Pakistan university has the balls. Like I know, like
As a
it's hard.
lecturer,
Yes,
well,
like because I know like these books are becoming very popular and people are just downloading them left and right from the internet and reading them. But do we actually have Pakistani universities where the professor is officially is like, let's read the God Delusion? And if yes, does that like how much balls do you need to have in Pakistan to be able to like maybe like are they like saying like, hey, come let's critique this evil? Maybe I have to I don't know. Like would that be under
that's
the
how often it's posited. Like, we're
right?
going to deconstruct the falsehoods of these dirty atheists. And then meanwhile, there's people in
Wink,
class who are
wink.
like, oh my God.
No, but somebody confirm that if this is actually true, that they're like somebody's officially announcing like has the balls enough to come and says like, oh yeah guys, yeah, let's study the God Delusion. Like, is that actually happening? Oh yeah, actually guys, here Harris Sultan has talked about this in his YouTube channel. Not obviously official, but it's something neither Imran Khan nor Pakistani. Okay, so not official. Okay, so it's not official because that would be extremely ballsy. I don't know, or maybe not very smart.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.